All right, part two. So if you guys remember, we finished working on that quick little half rotation or static rotation in our pole sit. Let's go from where we enter our pole sit, just so that we're clear on which direction we're facing, okay? So we just finished with our couple of leg waves. We've pulled our forward hip in towards the pole, leg closest to the audience is tucked up. We're gonna start to lower this hip as we tilt our hips to face towards the audience. Extending the back leg, hips tilted, we're landing in our pole sit. We're overwrapping, we're underwrapping, we're churning through the wrists. We can give ourselves that little bend in the legs to speed up the spin and tilting the hips in the opposite direction. So from here, this is the trickiest part of the choreo, but we can do it. We're gonna take our hand closest to the audience and send it down, palm to the floor. Now you'll notice my chest has started to face the audience. I'm gonna take the same side leg and bend it, sending my knee and my shin to the floor as well. Now, super important here, notice my palm is like flat on the pole here. I'm pushing into the pole. If I stop pushing into the pole here, my butt is gonna sink to the floor, yeah? So really quickly, one more tool that I use to help make this transition a little more doable. So not only am I pushing into the pole with that inside hand, when I take that bottom leg off of the pole and I'm placing that knee on the floor, I'm actually sliding the knee forward or towards my chest a little bit. That gives me a kind of leverage point or vantage point to find a little bit more stability in the transition. So let's run through that from our pole sit one more time. Hand closest to the audience, palm to the floor. My chest is now starting to rotate down towards the floor. Same side, knee and shin is coming to the floor. I'm pushing through this top hand. I'm going to rotate my fingers downward, grab the pole for extra stability as I send my chest down, lift this leg up. I can bring my forward hand to the floor, lowering my chest down and pulling this leg to the front of the pole so my knees are together. From here, I'm gonna send my hips forward, drag my leg closest to the audience forward, and settle onto my back hip. Okay. Now, if this transition from the pole to the floor is feeling a little bit too tricky right now, that's totally fine. Let's talk about a quick variation for this. So if you're finding that that move is just not working out right now, from our pole sit, we can still send this hand closest to the audience down, palm to the floor. We're still gonna bend that same side leg, bringing the shin to the floor, but you're gonna bend it a little more. So you're gonna bend it, bringing it totally perpendicular to the pole, lowering that shin and knee to the floor. Yeah. I'm right here. So I'm almost getting a full hook around the pole. So from your pole sit, hand closest to the audience comes palm to the floor. Same side leg will completely bend as we lower that shin and knee to the floor. We're then gonna sink our hips down towards the floor as we release this leg that's on the pole, bending it, extending it up, releasing our hand so our leg can clear the pole, and replacing the hand back on the pole to settle those hips to the floor. So as you can see, whichever variation or version of this transition you decide to do, either way we'll end up in the same position with our hips lowered to the floor. So moving on. I'm gonna walk my hands to the back, leaning behind me. So my legs are now crossed. Leg closest to the pole is crossed over and away from the pole. Now I'm aiming to get these legs from this side of the pole over to this side of the pole. So how are we gonna do that? We're going to use an internal and external rotation. So we're gonna take our top leg and we're gonna poke our knee in the direction we're going, externally rotated. Our other leg will follow. Again, we're poking that knee in the direction we're going, so that one is internally rotated. And we're just tick-tocking with those hips to get us up and over to the other side. As we do that, we'll straighten, reverse that rotation, sending our feet in the direction we're moving, and lower our shins onto the floor as we settle onto our opposite hip. Let's do that again. So we've just landed here, we're on all fours. We're gonna send those hips forward, pulling the leg closest to the audience forward and settling onto our back hip, the hip furthest from the audience. We're walking our hands back and behind us. So we're landing here with our top leg or our inside leg crossed over. We wanna get over there to that side of the pole. So I'm gonna start by leading with my knees, Yep. As I straighten, I'll reverse and I'm gonna lead with my feet. Lowering my shins and my hip onto the floor. Now, if you're getting here and this talk of internal, external rotation is just not happening today, here's another variation. You can simply lift your top leg up, followed by your bottom leg. So you're in this straddle, you're sending your legs over to the other side of the pole, and then you're bending, lowering those knees to the floor. Yeah, so one more time. So over here, you can skip all that internal and external rotation nonsense and simply send your legs over in a fan, leaning back onto the palms and settling onto the other side of the pole. Yeah. From here, I'm gonna take my top hand or the inside hand, place it on the pole in a cup grip, all fingers glued together. I'm gonna extend my top leg, keep it straight, and push through this hand on the pole, our inside hand, to rotate on my hips, clearing my head from the pole. My free palm can come to the floor to push my hips up and settle back onto my heels. Let's do that from our pole sit. So again, we've just finished our hip waves or our leg waves, and we're pulling the hip closest to the audience towards the pole, tucking the knee up towards the chest, tilting the hips, coming into our pole sit, overwrapping and underwrapping, churning through the wrists and tilting in the opposite direction. We're leaning down towards the floor as we send the hand closest to the audience, palm to the floor. Same side, knee and shin come to the floor. I'm pushing through this top hand. I'm gonna slide that palm down, rotate my hand down to push my chest towards the floor. I can bring that hand towards the floor as I clear my leg from the pole, bringing my knees together. Hips come forward as I pull the leg closest to the audience forward. I'm gonna settle back onto my hips, walk my hands to the back and behind me, and I'm in this crossed leg position. So you have two options here. You can lead with the knees, straighten, lead with the feet, and settle down. Or option number two, you can fan kick over, leading with your top, following with the bottom, and settling down. Either way will land in the same position. As soon as you land, you're straightening out this top leg. Inside hand comes palm to the pole. We're pivoting on those hips, clearing the head from the pole, free hand, palm to the floor. Now we're still coming up onto our knees, but that leg that was straight as we rotate, we're gonna keep it straight and we're gonna send it to the back. Engage the glute to lift it up and then finish by dragging it forward. So let's do it all the way from the beginning to the end. I'm gonna do it with you twice. So I'll do the original version and then I gave you guys those two variations for those two parts. So I'll do another version using those variations. So first, the original. So we're starting in our split grip, inside leg extended slightly to the back. We're gonna start by dragging the inside leg forward, balls of the feet to the floor, switch hands as we go into our body roll, butt to the back, tuck, bouncing the chest off of the pole, shifting our weight onto the foot furthest from the audience. Hand closest to the audience will be our high hand in this pirouette. Sweeping our free leg to the back, pirouette. Inside leg is crossed forward. We're keeping our weight on that leg, turning towards the pole, pulling the hip and leg in towards the pole, and away and in as we tuck the leg closest to the audience, up. We're tilting our hips towards the audience, settling into our pole sit, churning through the wrists to rotate, switching that hip tilt. Hand closest to the audience comes down. Same side knee comes down, pushing through this hand on the pole to send our chest towards the floor. Free hand can come to the floor and clearing that leg off of the pole, knees together, and pull the leg closest to the audience forward as we settle back onto our hips. Walk those hands back and behind you. So we're leading with our knees. As we begin, we extend and then we switch to lead with the feet. And then we settle down, immediately extending this top leg. Inside palm comes to the pole. Pivoting on our hips, free palm to the floor to push up onto our knee. This leg stays straight, and then finally we bend and pull it forward. Now, if you guys preferred those variations, here is another way that this choreo can look. So starting in our split grip, this will be the same. We drag our inside leg forward, balls of the feet to the floor, switching hands, butt to the back, and reverse, bouncing the chest off of the pole. Hand closest to the audience is our top hand in this pirouette, sending our free leg to the back as we pivot, landing with our inside leg crossed forward. We turn to face the pole. We send the hip forward and back and forward as we tuck the leg closest to the audience up. We'll tilt our hips towards the audience as we settle down into a pole sit. We're churning through the wrists and switching that hip tilt. Now here's where variation 1 will come. Hand closest to the audience comes palm to the floor. Same side leg, bends, lowering that shin onto the floor as well. We're sending our butt towards the floor as we pull our leg off of the pole, lifting it up, 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 clearing the pole and replacing our hand back on the pole, settling those hips down towards the floor. We'll land here. Walking the hands behind us, we're in this familiar cross-legged position. This is where variation number 2 is coming in. We're fan kicking up and over, lowering those knees to the floor, extending the top leg. Inside palm comes to the pole, pushing through that palm to pivot on the hips. Free hand comes to the floor. I'm going to push those hips up, keeping that leg locked out. Kick up, 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 and drag it in.